And no intro. Nathan, do you want to just plug us in?
Okay, welcome everybody. As usual, we have a pretty scuffed episode with no intro. That's how we do it here. For a change of things, I will be leading today's show because I will be interviewing these two legendary men who recently got back from the WTC, and they'll be going through different sides from a coaching perspective and a playing perspective of how well the event went from a Polish perspective. And then we'll probably talk a little bit about how the general event, and obviously talk about winners, losers, meta, all the good stuff. So, guys, how was the WTC this year? Enjoy it? Not enjoy it?
So, let me start with saying WTC, for me especially, is like the reason to schedule your life around 40k. It is legitimately just a way of living, and this is
my calendar year starts in August and finishes in August.
That is pretty much
like
true.
Past 12 years.
Yeah, this is pretty much true, and WTC does deliver on it every single year. And the event itself was as amazing as expected and as amazing as always, which is great to see. And I mean, number one event in the entire world by wide margin, actually. That's my opinion, and it hasn't changed.
Yeah, like this is my first time not going to WTC since 2010.
Oh
and
my
I was
god!
like, you know what? I won't go this year. I'll be fine. I won't miss it. And I was just saying to Typhus off air, you know the Pablo Escobar meme of him just walking around his house? That was me the whole weekend. I just like, I'm going out to go see, I went for drinks with my jiu-jitsu friends, and then me and Josh just sat there and we were looking at scores and things. So yeah, even when we were at a party with 15 people, all we could focus on was WTC. It's difficult to get rid of it. Yeah. But how do you find it, Typhus?
I mean, it's a great event, right? I think there are two parts of it. The part where we play and perform, and also the social part. And this is something that you should kind of separate, because I think why Pumba also mentions the event being so good is mostly the social part.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not necessarily playing 40k. Because
100%.
Especially in the go second meta, I think 40k can be sometimes dumb. But yeah, the event was great. According to my clock, watch, I had total of 14 hours of sleep during the 3 nights of the event. Got them. When I went back home, I was so happy to sleep in my bed. I think this was the first time in my life that, according to my watch, I reached 100% sleep score from Monday to Tuesday. I just lay down in bed and woke up 9.5 hours later. No issues.
Nice.
I think it's something that not everybody realizes from the outside. Like, Warhammer has become a little bit more, let's say, marathon-esque, where even singles now you're playing 8, 9, 10 rounds. But if you then factor in you're playing 7 rounds with a team, everything matters. That week you go, the sleep is difficult. Obviously, some people struggle enough with hotels and everything else. You've got the weight of your nation.
Everyone struggled.
Yeah.
There was no fucking AC.
Bad hotel.
I'll get to that.
So yeah, it's there is an endurance aspect to it as well. I don't know what the weather was like there, but obviously it was very hot here. So when you're in a concrete bomb shelter, it almost looks like, it's a long week. Plus the 3-4 weeks of stress after list submission to deal with leading up to the event. So you're already in a pretty bad state, and then you've also had a month before list submission where you're all panicking, deciding what to take. So yeah, that 3-month period, including the WTC week, is brutal. But with that becomes all the prestige of, it's the event everybody wants to win. It's the event everybody wants to go to. It's not replicable in any other event. You can go to Alpine, it's fantastic. You can go to Pyra, again, another fantastic event. Loads of international events, loads of team events, but it's not the WTC. It just isn't.
It really isn't. And the difference is, the contrast is stark, where for some unknown reason, this is the event where everybody just goes all out. This is the one event where I don't think you can compare it to anything else, because people do prepare for events, but no preparation like that is done for any other event. And because of that, the stakes are, for some reason, just off the charts, because everybody is gunning for that title. And like, legitimately, the field, year after year, and we've been telling that for years now, year after year, the field is getting much closer to each other.
Yeah.
And it's getting so much more fucking difficult.
And I think you
not
can
even
clearly see it with the scores after the pod. There were so many close wins or draws. Like, the field is getting more and more even. And I think moving forward, it will be even harder to just think about winning this event, because you will not only need to over-prepare the other teams, you would also need to not have an unlucky round, like few of those that happened throughout the event, which I've heard about. So it is just a question of whether you put enough years of prep that eventually you will get one, which is insane to say.
Yeah, I think, obviously, because I was watching along from home like a lot of other people, seeing everything round by round, you do very much notice now that what was 10 years ago the dominance of Poland and Germany, with the occasional splash of England and the occasional... go away, Naz.
Hello, Naz.
But yeah, with the occasional spattering of, say, Sweden or England winning the event, now it literally is... Would I be wrong in saying there's 8 potential teams that can win it?
I believe it's up to...
I had a lovely conversation with Boris before the event, where I told him after the list submission that I wouldn't be surprised if in top 3 there wouldn't be Poland, England, or USA at all.
Yep.
There I saw the list.
Well,
after I looked
you were fucking
at the
close.
estimation. And that's what and that's what actually, between us and Sweden, it was like 13 second
secondary points, battle points.
Yeah. So like, it is getting more and more competitive. Yeah. Although I don't think England was competitive for the last 3 years, but
there you go. Now there's some shit.
Well, there's more coming. Come on.
Yeah.
What did you expect?
But even then, you look at most of the pods went as kind of expected, but then you've got other pods like, what was it? Czechia came out with 2 wins, including beating Belgium and narrowly losing to Germany.
Very narrow.
So you've got teams that I think Czechia was a pod 3 team, beating a pod 2 team, taking a pod team 1, I think it was 88-72.
Yeah, I believe they come out most improved actually from the event.
Yeah. Them or New Zealand, probably.
I think it was Czechia this year. Yeah.
So, yeah.
And what I also love, one of the Czechia players online on like a Discord was saying that he doesn't know why people are scared of Liam VSL, because he wins against him every time. So they faced round 1 and he won 16-4 against Liam.
Fucking wow.
Back your chat up. If you're going to talk some shit, back it up. And if you can do it, you can.
Nice. I do respect that.
But even then, we saw it from... What was it? Like Singapore, Thailand, that you guys played.
Yeah, we had suddenly 2 seed tooth in our team. With Canada performance. With Canada performance. Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, but to be fair, I was very impressed with Thailand. We faced them round 1. And you know, when it is like when it is like our out, and you're the head coach, and you are projecting a draw against your seed 4 team, I was like, maybe we just leave. Maybe we just maybe we just don't play anymore. Like, just go to Bar Popular and spend next 3 days there.
Including from, obviously, when we talk about teams, you have individual performances as well. Obviously, they are somewhat potentially slightly manufactured. But even then, you still have a Chinese player finishing top 4. Well, came 4th for top scorer. Although top score is an interesting one because, like, say for example, David Gaylard is the top scorer, but he's not the highest points.
Yeah, BCP
He won-
uses wins instead of score points themselves. So David is the highest according to that system, but he's in the
because
highest
he win all
scorer.
7 rounds. Olivier is the highest point scorer because he got 1 draw, 6 wins, but is, I think, 4 points more than David.
He had
so it's how you wanna look at
122.
So I guess we should probably start a little bit with, even after the event, after we saw all the lists and everyone thought even the top teams' metas are so varied, after this event, could you even still put your finger on what the meta is? Was there anything other than, say, the obvious armies like Thousand Suns or whatever? If the WTC was in another month, would the meta still be totally different? As in,
Okay, I have a fucking hot.
was anything fully established at the event that actually these are the correct answers?
No.
Absolutely fucking not. Absolutely fucking not. There's no, I don't believe anything is legitimately established after WTC. I think there's definitely some super interesting list, as always, to come out of the event that will wreck this fucking meta, by the way. And everybody will be so done with 100 Crusaders in like a month. It's crazy. However, my hot take after this event is we are in the most balanced meta, and I fucking hate it.
I would say there's one
it.
thing, looking at the event and how the meta unfolded, I think that Blood Angels were actually one of the worst Marine picks to choose.
I think they legitimately, just looking at the stats of Space Marines, I think Blood Angels came out at the bottom of the pack.
Yeah, they are.
Which
and
is
I think they were just
insane.
the wrong choice to
and
think about, right?
Their singles is actually trending that way as well. They are very good at going 4-1. They're not as great at winning events because they are somewhat of the obvious choice on certain table types. They're very predictable with how they play. They have no shooting. They're very one-dimensional. That's what they do. If you can beat it, they get beaten. If you can't beat it, they beat you. It's a little bit rock, paper, scissors, where...
Yeah. And then you think you can beat them, but actually Forge Fiend's good, and then you get fucked. Yeah.
So
I think there's...
That's kind of where the Dark Angels have come through a little bit better. That Black Templar listed super well. Your Space Wolf listed amazingly well, even though
it was our top scorer.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I heard
but
so many
I
people
protected it in pairings so hard.
Oh,
yes, but you could probably say they did similar things with Olivier, where if that list, because I actually think even if people start taking the 110-man list, not everybody's going to do that well with it. He probably has so many reps on a Horde list because it's deceptively fragile sometimes against certain things.
That's actually a good story because Oliver told us that at Bar Popular, I think Sunday, that he just played War Masters, which he won, by the way.
Yep.
With that list to get some preps in because he wasn't that much practice.
He had only 8 games with that list in real life. And he he also mentioned that he played 8 in real life, but he realized that he was cheating a little bit and doing all of the stuff that he shouldn't be doing. So he went for War Masters just to clear all of that out.
Yeah.
So he gets the muscle
iron out
memory
how he plays the list. And oops, suddenly you fucking win War Masters because, of course, then you top score at the WTC, right?
Yeah.
That list is something fucking else. Oh my god.
While we're on War Master, and obviously this is more of a teams podcast, but the French absolutely dominated the singles as well.
Yep.
4 or 5 in the top 10. Another 2.
And also
Olivier, Arnold with Necrons. It was Sacco
1, 2, 3.
third. Yeah, I think
1, 2,
they took
3
1
was
to
France.
3 legitimately.
And then it was,
and then Hugo was also really close. He got beaten by his own teammate.
Yep. Yeah, they absolutely dominated that, and they pretty much. I wouldn't say
they took home everything this year. Legitimately, you can say that.
Yeah, 100%. So again, we should probably say congratulations to France Congratulations to
Yeah.
Spain and
I'm
congratulations
wearing my
to
fucking colors.
Poland.
I'm repping.
I'm wearing also one from Olivier that he gave me specifically to commemorate the game we've had. So
I would also be wearing a French top, but none of you are fat, so none of you swaps. So I've stuck with a Finland top. So yeah, moving swiftly on. Let's talk
can
a
I
little
add
bit
one more
about-
thing?
Yeah, sure, dude.
About the meta? I think there are some things that are clarifying. And this is something we had a longer talk after the event and even in the morning. And what I find is that meta is very drawish at the face of it. And it is somehow and sometimes very hard to push high scores. So what I found is when doing pairings, it usually ended up with like 6 very drawish games or like 5 very drawish games, and then 3 being more of a bigger wins. And I think what is more important now when we would be thinking about next team events is actually to go with more polarized lists that are that you could use those drawish armies to even further enable those high scorers, which was in our case, Pumba and Myson were usually taking a worse matchup, so Crooker later can score high.
Mhm.
And this was a thing.
Yeah.
And from what I talked to France had the unique matrix when I was pairing into them because they had the good ACDC list, not the English one. And also
fucking list slaps.
also 100 Templars and also Hypercrypt, which can score high.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I think that's where they had the benefit in the pairings that even sometimes they took Eldar, which is shit army and you shouldn't play it. Even though they took it, they had 3 other high scorers that could carry Hugo on their back. Sorry, Hugo.
Yeah.
But
Man, those fucking elves sure are broken. But I mean, he got busted
Yeah.
out, I think. But
I
that's
think
the
it's
problem with elves right now.
there might be, like you say there might be more of a tactical element of taking a couple of, say, 13-7 losses or 8-12, 12-8 kind of losses to try and push more of your higher 17, 18, maybe even 20s with some slightly more extreme lists to make pairings really difficult for your opponent. Like you say, those extreme lists, we say England uses red as our worst matchup. That chucks a load more reds into the pairings matrix because you just can't play those lists.
Yep. But then you come up with a list such as the Crusader spam that Oliver had, and like we didn't have anything that plays that legitimately.
No.
Neither did England.
we had 2 factions actually. Our team had 2 factions that could play it, but yeah.
Like you could,
But those were 2 factions.
Sure, if Oliver
Yeah.
attacks into Skark's CSM, then sure. But
Yeah, exactly. It's
like does it
those
happen?
2 armies can't pin him down.
Exactly. That's
You're
what I
just
mean.
not going to get those games, unfortunately. So yeah.
If you actually do, we want to talk about some factions because I have definitely some thoughts about factions, like
Sure.
how they performed.
Shoot.
I would like to start with the fact that I think
Eldar are just pure ass, and anybody
Yeah.
that took Eldar made a mistake, including the French, because their elves did not deliver results. And I know it might be because they got bust, but getting busts and constantly getting around 5-3 or 1 point is not good enough if you want to get
I
bust.
think
So you must
you
have been
look
bust
further-
because like if you are getting bust and scoring 1-3 points, that means you are getting bust because you cannot have any good matchups, or like it's too hard for you to get a good matchup, so you just get sacrificed instead of like getting a joyous result out of getting bust, right? And this happened with France. I know Sean scored the lowest at the event from the US team. There were,
and I think you could
builds
even
that I
see it
hated.
as in a different way. Like Hugo and Sean had decent scores in the pod or even high scores in the pod, but as soon as they got out of the pod, their results dropped hard. And on the other hand, Belgium, who sucked in the pod, had very low scores in the pod. Liam had 24 points in the pod, but then when they got out of the pod playing the lesser seeding teams, he then scored high. So
Sure. I think I'm just looking through, seeing what Eldar. A couple did well, but then it's like one of the Woback brothers for Austria did very well. Other than that, not many. I think in the top 50 there is 1. Yeah, I think he's the only person in the top 50. In the top 60, there's 3 Eldar. Liam's, I think, the next highest on 58.
Yeah,
placed.
and Liam honestly didn't like. If we are talking about the best player in the world, which I think Liam is, I don't think that army delivered. Like, of course, it's arguable, but that's my opinion.
Of course. So yeah, like I'm going to say Josh until the cows come home, or Skark, or whoever. Yeah.
Sure. But arguably one of the best players in the world for sure. And that result, I think, is disappointing for the caliber of the player.
Yeah, he had a tough weekend.
Which means the army, at least in my opinion, doesn't deliver. Although we had a lovely talk on Tuesday about this at Bar Popular, where Liam tried to convince everybody. It was around 1 a.m. Do you remember that Elder, that we are insane for not taking Elder, and they are still the most broken faction in the entire game, and Hugo will absolutely demolish everybody, and so will he. Well, Sunday did come finally, and oh boy, did that not happen. I had a good laugh about that.
Oh yeah, for those not in the know, everybody kind of goes out before the week starts. So now it's kind of moved to Tuesday because it kind of starts on Thursday. The amount of smack talk and absolute nonsense that is spoken before this event is crazy. I think a lot of people...
the most joyous thing in the world.
Yeah, some people love it, some people hate it. I absolutely can't stand it. For me,
I love it.
You look like an absolute asshole afterwards after saying some nonsense stuff.
I absolutely I thrive in it. I especially loved how, let me say this clear, the entire Team England, where they're convincing everybody that they are just here to score 4th. And from the perspective of the event that has passed, fucking ambitious guys.
Anyway, moving down the factions, Tau. I had the pleasure of pairing against Tau quite a lot. And I think they were very bad choice for any team that took them. Let me tell you why. Tau usually had to first defend. Unless you were playing Retaliation Cadre, which can 3-inch deep strike and whatnot, you were forced into early table choices. And most of the teams had counters into Tau. Tau cannot win a gun off into a proper gunline army, so you can attack Tau with like gunline, or you can attack it with elves or something like that, and suddenly it becomes problematic. Or you attack it with space wolves, and suddenly that army, if it doesn't first defend, it goes down in the board choices and still doesn't score nearly good scores, or it gets into the last 4 where it will just get destroyed because of the remaining armies that are in the pack and the tables that were already chosen. Because usually the table picks throughout the whole event were like the very first 4 rounds usually took the open tables, and you had all the good melee tables back in the, how people call it, scrum, I think, in the last 4.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Tau was, unless it was Red Cadre, I think it was a bad choice. That's my take.
I agree. I'm wondering how the US are going to debrief like their take and their Tau, where they allowed us to attack their Tau with the Skark list. But I do know that Gonyo scored quite well this event, so I don't think they will be disappointed with it, right?
Yeah, because obviously I've heard on other podcasts and whatnot, people saying that obviously taking Tau is a mistake, and I do generally agree with you, Typhus. I think Tau as a faction outside of WTC, everything else is a very good faction. It's a bit one-dimensional, obviously, because it's just a gunline, but the WTC tables do not cater to them at all. So, like you say, when they get deeper in pairings, or they get, like you say, against a much more dedicated anti-tank or anti-vehicle or gunline army, they don't always win those firefights. So yeah, they are not offering you that much in the way of your pairings matrix. But then again, a couple of Tower armies did quite well. I actually thought Gonya did quite well, considering a lot of people were saying Tower was a massive mistake. Gonya's going to have a really difficult weekend. I actually think he did quite well. I know he got most of his points in his pod phase, but he still did well.
I think in general, my experience also having a gun line that was supposed to be a first defender is that approach doesn't work
Anymore now.
and that's because a lot of teams brought factions that could pin your first defender gun line, and Skark on first defender only work against teams that didn't have those armies. And guess what armies Skark faced throughout the event, having been the guy who needs a table? 3 times Tau and 3 times Sisters.
Yeah, 3 Sisters, right?
And once time Blood Angels because pairings.
Sure.
So he faced Sisters, who were, I think, throughout the event, an army that was just designed to cockblock something. And it was never meant to be a high scorer, because this is something we've developed throughout the event, that this army will not be a high scorer. It is a better defender, like second defender. This army, I think this is where will be the spot for this faction moving forward. And first defender gun lines are just not that great, because you have multiple different counters to first defender gun lines. You have GK, who are insanely good into gun lines.
Yeah.
Especially if
you build them right.
If you have first to the fray Nemesis Dread Knight, like Grandmaster, who can first turn loan up on a side object and be like, cool.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
So you just loan up nearly every turn on a side objective and force over commitments. Good luck. Or you have other factions that can counter gun lines, which are wolves, like the Crusher Knights, Eldar. You have plenty of choices that can counter that. So I don't think it is a good approach moving forward. And I think our choice of CSM was a bad choice.
I played a couple of games with Skark's list against the England guys, and it was a little bit... You obviously know its role. You know what it's going to do. It does its role very well, but if it strays out of its role, like you've just said, it becomes less efficient, less useful.
So I don't think it was a bad choice. I think it didn't work as intended, because it clearly worked because it opened other players by choosing a faction that others didn't want to play. So it brought 10s. So if you open up the matrix and pairings and you still bring a 10, that is a very good score. So, but it didn't work as intended. And I think this, if we would go throughout the whole event, I think this would be a common pattern.
I agree.
Yeah. And do you think that list was somewhat propped up by Skark's ability?
Yes.
I think so. If we were to look at other players who brought the same list, I would be very surprised if they...
Yeah, because there were multiple people running this exact list after Pyra, and I don't believe any of them performed spectacularly well. Skark did quite okay, right? I think he was our third scorer or something.
Something like, I think he was third scorer with most of the points in the pod.
Yeah, of course.
But again, Skark is Skark. He's master of gun lines.
Like he legitimately, I think he developed the list, and he was very comfortable.
If it wasn't Skark on that faction, I would never take it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
I agree.
That's what I mean.
That was straight up. That was one of the things that we had to work around in our team comp building process, is the fact that Skark needs his gun line. So we literally told him to find one anywhere he wants.
Sure.
He came up with that, and we're like, fine. I mean, legitimately, we told him any single faction, if you like it, it works. He really didn't enjoy Tau, by the way.
Yeah.
So it came down to the fact that CSM were they are the most efficient shooting right now. If you stack the Halberds, Pearls, the Abaddon buffs, you turn one Vindicator into 3 almost shooting, and that's really fucking fun too.
So if we're still going through factions, let's discuss an interesting one, because it affects a couple of top teams did take them. And I'll join them together, Knights and Chaos Knights. Because we've said on this podcast before, we really like them, but they are difficult to take in an 8 because they can be volatile. But actually, Australia's and Sweden's both did quite well in specific rounds. Do you think they actually have a bit more of an in now? Or do you still think they are kind of a very rogue choice to take an 8?
I think Sweden, who took Chaos Knights, they worked only because they had Imperial Knights as well.
Sure.
I agree.
Because I don't think the Imperial Knights did that great.
Their
So-
Imperial Knights were first defender.
Their
Ah,
Imperial
yeah.
Knights multiple times first defender, took
Sure.
Thesons, paired into Thesons 3 times, and took us 7 out of that matchup every single time. Against me, Arne, and one more. What I will say about this is this ultimately proved to me that if you have enough fucking reps with anything in this fucking game right now, you will do well. If you're a good player with enough
I was
reps.
going to bring this up later, but looking at the WTC from the outside perspective, never have I ever seen a time where the faction specialist has never been more important.
I agree, 100%.
Because there's lists that did well that almost look in isolation of how well they've done. Like, overall, Necrons did very well. Overall, Sisted did well. Overall, Thousand Sons did well. We know those. They're kind of to be expected. But you've got Demon players scoring really high points. You've got Chaos Knight Army scoring really high points. You've got a Black Templars list being the top scorer, which was he the one of very few Templar, probably the only list of his type, I think.
Yeah.
I think there's like one of our people who were online helping us did a comparison at the end of the event, and the armies that had highest scoring into us were Drukhari, Chaos Knights, and Chaos Demons.
Sure. Yeah.
3 highest scoring factions into Team Poland.
Yep.
And I think it just complements that what we just mentioned, is that if you know how to play those armies, it is gonna be beneficial for you, and you can make an argument to bring them. But at the same time, if you are taking those factions, you need to have something in your mind when building that team comp. Because when Sweden did that, they also had tanky Leagues of Votan. They had enough threat saturation with heavy targets that it made sense.
Yes.
Because eventually you will get a decent matchup for that 4th faction that has similar defensive profile.
Sure.
So yeah.
Because even, for example, I would argue that you guys took 3 almost faction specialist armies in Space Wolves, Admech, and Custodes. They all performed well because you had people who were...
Admech was iffy, but yeah.
Sure.
It improved in certain matchups, which I think really worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So about faction specialism, I think more than that, especially from our perspective, it's niche armies that played a lot of games into top armies in good players' hands will do really fucking well, no matter the faction. Here, I will say this right now. I believe if somebody took fucking GSC, put 100 games on them in this tournament, he would be the top fucking scorer. I am sure. If Eric was at WTC, he would be the top scorer with GSC. I have zero doubts about that. Even though 0 teams took GSC, I think it was there. If there was a mad lad who just played the shit out of them, tested extensively into everything, he would absolutely destroy this event.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the meta is so flat, the pariah is so unsolved and like weirdly swingy, which is why I said I hate this meta, because I really dislike the fact that some of the matchups are really drawish, and the only thing that matters is who takes the table / who goes second. Those two, and then you've got the layer of cards that also can swing at least like 2 brackets of your score. All of this combined makes me like, there is no, like, if you feel out, I have never feel so inconfident in my matrix, if you know what I mean. If I
Yeah.
fill out a green into a green
Can
matchup,
confirm.
like green matchup, I've been doing this for years now, right? And the green matchup should always be a 10. But then he picks the table, I go first, and I draw a little bad. And how the fuck do I make it not an 8, for example, or a 7? And that can really happen. And that did happen multiple times at this event.
Yeah, and then to mention like the faction specialism, I think our win against USA was purely based on that. Weirdly enough,
How so?
it is we did something different with first defending AdMech. And from what I was talking, they didn't prepare as much for first defender AdMech. And they attacked with 2 armies that Duda actually playtested and had comfortable wins into them, whilst they thought they were wins for them.
Okay, that's big.
So he took Sisters, which was very good for us. And then it happened that later in the pairings, we had 2 other matchups for Duda, Duda played Nick. Lesh played into Eldar, Sean Aiden's Eldar. Admittedly, apparently, Sean played it very badly, but it was still something they felt confident into. But Lesh won 14-6. And also Kruker just barely didn't deny Secret Objective, so he won 14-6 instead of 18-2 into Orcs, which they also were slightly confident.
Yeah. I think.
Whilst we also got caught into their faction specialism to some extent.
Yeah, of course.
Let's not be like it worked both ways, but it just happened. In this case, I think it was more to our benefit, but in the next rounds, it was us who were on the losing end of getting caught by faction specialism. And I think this is the story of the whole event.
I think the story of this event that has been proven by multiple rounds is the fact that if there was one team who can make each of their players play around 150 to 200 games before WTC, they will win this event every single time. That's my opinion. You've got around 10, we say 10 tier 1 teams, right? So you've got 72 lists besides your own. Then you've got, let's say, archetypes. You've got like Dark Angels, and
let's say 50
Angels.
archetypes. I think 50
archetypes because there's a definite difference. For example, if you play it as into ACDC that England brought, or across Scotland, their common build that England brought or France brought, actually completely wildly different builds. So you cannot say that they are the same archetype even. I think I know one team that thought that would be the same archetype, didn't really work well. So you've got around 50 archetypes, and then you want to test into multiple missions with a little variance and probably going first, second. So you would like at least 3 games into each of their archetypes to feel very comfortable with assessing it. So I legitimately think 150 games is like the minimum, and then I think the team that does this will win with WTC 100% of the times. It's not fucking happening, by the way.
No. I think you could argue, you could say that about most WTCs in the past if you've got players playing.
100%. But
we are getting to that level that, for example, let's say Duda, who picked up AdMech like a month before the event, within that month played like 40 games. So it was, I think we had a conversation. So he played every weekend like 5 to 6 games, and then every weekday he played 1 game.
Yeah.
How can you fit in more games if you are having anything resembling adult life? You cannot.
You cannot.
No.
It is impossible, and I feel more and more that this is required. And I really felt this event that, especially it's gonna sound a little complainy, and I don't want it to come off this way. However, that having like the trouble, the trouble that Poland has right now is the fact that you've got 10 tier 1 teams, and they are all prepping into around 4 or 5 teams. That's the maximum amount of lists. Let's say not like specific teams, but the amount of lists that they can really prepare into. So we did England, France, the US, of course, Germany, stuff like that. And everybody else from Tier 1 would do Poland and 3 other teams.
Yeah. We didn't we didn't play test Sweden or Spain nearly at all.
Right.
Like, it was even worse. Like, this is something that I'm very ashamed of to even say. When we knew that we are playing Spain, I looked into our estimation matrix, and 2 players didn't fill in any colors, which means they haven't fought. They haven't fought about those armies at all before.
Mm-hmm.
That's not great.
Yeah,
this is something that shouldn't happen, and I think this was a negligence on our part.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
I agree. And it was really proven, I think, in this event where we came into the US, where we were really super hard prepared into them. I think
nearly 40% of our prep was US.
Yeah, I would say so. So
everyone really played into Crusher. Everyone played into Deathwing Knights. Everyone played into
Green Tide.
Orcs.
Yeah.
Every single one. Everyone
I played into Dark Angels multiple times. Yeah, the Magical Chaos Knights. Yeah, we legitimately played this as the fuck out of them. So
except Vanilla, because we knew we didn't have equivalent players. So
that was legitimately the problem. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the point I was going to bring up. Your AdMech player played pretty much as many games as humanly possible, but it's so difficult now where you can have those games, but unless you play another person of a great skill and a faction specialist, for example, like a lot of these top teams are taking, you can almost, I wouldn't not say detrimental to your practice, but you might get the wrong results because you didn't play that skill level as well.
Yeah.
So it's having the players around you also is so difficult to replicate.
Yeah.
Like a fighter going into a training camp. You can't necessarily replicate the abilities of a world champion with having another fighter come in because they're not going to be that good as that guy. So
this is something that we tried to handle as the Polish team, because we assigned very early after this submission to like 15 spare players who were taking part in the team choosing. I cannot find the right word before. So we had, for example, dedicated previous WTC players who were only playing Lucas' list or only playing Eric Forsman list. So we had a few people who could give us very reliable info after they played like 10, 11 games. But it only worked because we had like a backbone of players that were willing to put in the time and also rely on information. But weirdly enough, they were only the players who kind of played the Orc list or like the US list. That was the only team that we had coverage from, like our backbone, like the second row of the players we had on the team. So,
yep, absolutely the case. And coming back to what I was saying, so we were really prepared into the US, for example, and we did very fine into them. We were prepared. We knew what we were doing. We maybe didn't know the mission the day of the event, normal stuff.
Okay, right? Let me interrupt you, bitch. So we are leaving the venue on Friday after round 3, and me and my son meet Sean, and we're like, yeah, cool. So whoever we play next round, it is ritual, very Jewish mission. So we were both convinced. And then we've learned we are playing USA, so we didn't bother checking the mission. But it turns out after like 3rd of July, they changed the sequence of the missions.
Yeah,
I think something like that. So Ritual was on the game 6, and we are convinced it's on game 4. So I stayed up till 2 a.m. preparing to pair on Ritual to learn at 8:30 in the morning while we were walking to the venue, because we looked at the fucking lanyards that we are wrong and we need to adjust our estimations. But you know what's the funniest part about it? I think the US team was also wrong.
Okay.
And they learned like
no harm, no foul.
They had more time because they learned like mid-prep in the evening, but both sides were wrong on that.
It's fine. The mission doesn't matter. It's fucking pariah. You do the secret mission, you're fine. Cards.
Actually, while we're on that subject, how much did Secret Mission come up
A
over the
lot.
entire event? Was it impactful enough to affect rounds?
Yes,
Yes.
100%.
This is
Legitimately,
something
a
you
real
needed
thing.
to account for
Yeah.
when doing
As
Matrix.
we've said,
Like,
as
on
we've
Matrix
said,
level.
and we've kind of agreed. I think all agreed on to that. Secret missions are a thing. They will affect scores. They did affect scores. They are huge. They matter in some matchups more, less than others. There are armies that benefit from them. There are armies that ignore them completely. There are armies that need to be aware that if you come out against Cyber Crypt, T-Sons, or like Grey Knights or whatever, you will get fucked on a secret mission. Everything that like this whole matters, and it's just a part of the skill set that you need to apply when playing Warhammer, especially when playing Teams Warhammer. They are a thing.
Yep, it was included in our Matrix. Like, this is something we had a conversation before every round, and I think specifically Ritual was very like that mission like brought down all of our wins into draws and on all our losses nearly into draws as well, because on that mission you can also spawn objectives in a way that table choice doesn't matter as much. So suddenly it flattens everything way more. So it was something that when we were preparing for Ritual, we, for example, knew that we needed to avoid blowout games or manipulate our matrix to create a game for Kruger that he can win high again.
Yep.
And this is something that we had in mind, and this was something that we had a conversation about every time we updated the matrix.
Yep.
Every single time.
And the last part of the like prep talk that I've been on is the fact that like we then faced Sweden. We got first we faced Spain, not prepared at all into them, drew. Then we faced Sweden, completely unprepared into them, got wrecked. And then the Swedes who wrecked us, where they were specifically very much prepared for us, come up against Spain and get clapped.
Yeah.
Everybody can beat anybody. Like legitimately, it's a free-for-all environment right now. And the thing that matters the most is the preparation. Who are the teams?
And I
that
think
you have been prepared
very
for?
important is not having the target on your back. So
That's what I mean.
Yeah, you're at a slight disadvantage where you are, like I've said to you guys off camera, where you are at a point now where Poland are perennial winners. You guys came third, but it's still considered potentially a bad event.
yeah, we were unhappy. Me and Pumba were literally unhappy.
But that's the
That is the
mentality you
case.
have to have if you want to win the WTC. It just is. It's the same with anything super competitive. It's the point where, everybody is prepping for Poland. England were prepping for Poland, USA, and France. The primary three. Don't think I wasn't part of most of England's prep work, but the last week before, I was there playing Skark's gunline and the Tyranid gunline for USA. Because I'd like to consider myself a mid specialist. But it was predominantly that kind of you will always be prepped for, unfortunately. That is the difficult part. Yeah. But credit to you guys where you don't have bad year. I think your last bad year was 2019, where you came, fifth? Other than that, you pretty much podium or something.
2019, we were third. 2018, we were fifth.
Oh, sorry, 18,
So, disgraceful.
Yeah,
absolutely fucking disgraceful.
We're I think 3 times of the podium proud.
Imagine not podiuming WTC, bro. Come on.
Imagine not even finishing the top 5. Anyway, Naz, you want to trash talk?
Bob's coming down. Jesus.
So if we carry on a bit with factions, actually, now that we're talking about Naz, God. I think I've messaged Naz earlier today. I think Naz did fucking, for all the trash talk he has, he did phenomenally well this weekend.
I absolutely agree.
with a
I
faction
hate
that.
to say that.
Yeah, suck it up, guys. Come on, give him his credit.
No. I already did. I already fucking did it. Bar
Yeah,
Popular
yeah.
Sunday. I think he did amazingly well.
He
I
did
think
really well.
guard is something that we slept on. I don't think the current guard list is something that like Skark likes at all.
Yeah,
It's not
and
very
this is
gunliney.
Also,
It's not
why
his style
we
of
didn't
it.
find guard.
Yeah, that's is
Because
absolutely true.
Skark is faction specialist. Guard stopped being "I shoot you, you die" faction.
Yeah,
so
it's a
Skark
mid-board
stopped playing
control
it.
specialist.
That is 100% true. Yes.
Yeah.
So we kind of missed that. We were very honest about the fact that we are going to miss some stuff during prep this time, especially. Like we legitimately were thinking to ourselves, let's not stretch too thinly and focus on the stuff that we can develop and playtest instead of just like something that maybe somebody comes up, but it's too late to test, and we're like, fine. If something comes up, we'll deal with it then. We will not figure everything out. It's not going to happen. It has never happened. We're fine with that. So the guard is something like that. The ACDC CSM list is absolutely 100% one of those, I think.
See, I think maybe miss is the wrong word. In previous years where you'd have maybe competitively, you'd have maybe 10 armies that you could go, and then a couple of teams take one army that does particularly well. Then you feel like you miss something. But now, not only are there potentially 10 teams that can win the WTC, you also have within that 8 so many options of top tier lists now. And it just makes prep impossible, like we discussed earlier.
That's true.
Yeah.
And I hope it only gets worse for the prep, in all fairness, because it makes the game more interesting.
Man, it does make the game more interesting. I fucking hate it, bro. I am so done with Warhammer, by the way. Can we just not play that game anymore? How the fuck am I going to...
When we lost against Sweden, Pumba came up to me, exhilarated, being like, one more game, and we're done. One more round, and we are free. We can run freely on those fields of happiness.
I would not play a game playing with T-Sons if you paid me good money or put a gun up to my head. I would not do that.
Yeah.
There's always a price.
Yeah, there is. Overall, if I would like sum up the meta, I think pressure is very good and underestimated. I think that is something that we specifically missed a lot of. We had the Wolves pressure, but we completely didn't see the possibilities of like the ACDC list or like the 100 Crusaders list or other pressure stuff like that. So that's one. And by the way, can we talk about seasons just a little bit? Because there is a very interesting discussion right now. Because T-Sons performed very well, I think, in the event overall.
Yeah. I'd say they're the best faction.
Yeah, I think legitimately. By the way, all of the T-Sons builds are kind of good, which is also is fucking crazy.
They are still bringing the good stuff.
So, I mean, they are bringing fucking Forge Finch, which are ass. By the way, have you heard about my fucking bet, Nathan?
Oh, yes.
Oh, God, you have not heard about my fucking
No, I haven't. I've missed all the drama, unfortunately.
No. You will love it.
Occurred. Okay.
You will love it.
Let me get to the bet. It was Tuesday night at Bar Popular, where like every good story starts like this, I think. And I was chilling with Anthony and Brian. A little drunk. Okay? A little tipsy.
To be expected.
A little tipsy. So Anthony is very sad that this year he had no people that took the bet that he had previously set up for people. I mean, I took it, won it. Didn't get inked anyway, but hey, he has the scaffold.
Like bet with him, which I will mention.
Also, they did not shake on that fucking bet. Fuck you, Anthony. So there was definitely a situation where Anthony, instead of I already was pretty much aware that nobody is taking his bet, so he tries to stir things up, right? So what he comes up with, actually, It was. It might have been the case that I was a little bit shit talky about Brian's
Really? Big surprise.
list.
Pumba?
Yeah.
No,
Me
never.
talky, one
Drinking, shit talking. What a surprise!
with
You surprised me,
right?
sir.
With Brian and that thing.
Okay,
So I
yeah.
might have been a little shit talky about like Tison's list because there was like David there. And we were talking, and I literally like the 3 Mutant Vortex Beast, and then of course I jumped into how fucking awful Forge Fiends are, and then Anthony was there and Brian also. So not 5 minutes later, I had a bet with who scores highest individual scores with Brian for Scafalo or I believe the Chibi Forge Fiend with a Wizard hat was the something I had to get inked if I lost that bet. If, of course, I lost that bet. Because, of course, I fucking did. And Forge Fiends suck ass. I was losing for the entirety of the tournament, all the way. After Brian 20-0'd money, I literally hugged him and I said, I will wear that fucking Forge Fiend with pride. I was very convinced I am not going to make it. But then last round happens. I rolled fucking hot against Space Wolves. I 73 those motherfuckers. And Brian loses 19-1, and I come out 1 point ahead, by the way. A single point ahead.
Okay, to give you a
So-
grasp of understanding how insane that Space Wolf
I
game
will,
is.
I will, if you want to, I will
for it.
tell
Yeah.
a little bit about this game.
This is
I will just finish up with the fact that I have now branded 2 Team US members with a Scafalo. And I'm coming for the fucking rest. Be wary. This is going to happen.
Your Vortex.
What's up? The Arcane Vortex guy? Motherfucker, that model can sometimes high roll. And if he does that 6 times in a row, you literally sweep any army in the game, including Space Wolves. I was bust under the Wolf Jail. I think I won that game in practice once against Kruger by like doing
And we
some
had
miracle
this
fucking stuff.
Space Wolves as a counter against Tisons as well.
Like
in our
legitimately,
team.
I think they're a great counter, and I do believe Australia absolutely understood that and had it correctly in their matrix as a Tison's counter. I've played that game multiple times. I was very prepped into it. I had a great table because I knew that one fucking table which they hate. It still wouldn't have mattered. I would have scored like maybe 5, maybe 6 points if I 2 even a 0 if like the dice weren't hot. Boy, did they did go so hot. It's not even fucking funny. I tabled those the wolves in 4 turns, bro.
Wow.
By the third I went first. When I finished my 3rd turn, the Australian Wolves players had like the lieutenant on an objective, 5 Fenrisian wolves, and 5 Wolfen, I think, and like 5 intercessors, and that's it. Everything else was dead. I rolled. I don't think I rolled below a 10 on the Arcane Vortex.
You did 7. You rolled 7.
In Overwatch on a single
3.
character, still fucking killed him.
that's
Yes,
okay.
On a single character in Overwatch, yes.
like
And
brother.
you still rolled 3 dev wounds to kill him outright.
yeah, of course I did, and then flipped another one. That was the craziest my dice have ever been. They just refused to like. I was not getting inked.
So,
that
okay,
day.
just one thing. First movement of a wolf squad with Canis. Overwatch from Vortex. 11 shots, 11 wounds. 4.5 wolves die. They charge Mutalid Vortex Beast, which explodes, deals 6 wounds to kill the rest of the wolves.
and then
and
6
kills-
more to like a
and-
squad of Wolfen.
To a squad of wolf and to a squad of scouts, so they do not contest objective.
Yeah, so Magnus scores the objective because the scout died from the explosion.
Seems totally reasonable. Yeah.
Absolutely fucking not.
And that was
the,
turn
that was
1.
the craziest die. That was turn 1. That
And
was
that
the
was
craziest
turn
dice
1.
I've ever seen.
And it continued. I
Like it continues throughout the
felt
whole game.
so bad for that guy.
Same.
I really
Like legitimately, I remember like
Yeah,
Typhus being.
yeah.
Do you want like a beer, a glass of wine?
Yeah.
That was fucking rough, bro. But
Yeah.
I did win the fucking bet because of that, so I'm happy.
So
Because fuck Forge Fiends, they suck dick.
I hope you're
Back to Tisons, by the way.
Stop
Back to
betting
Tisons.
with Pumba.
Back to Tisons. I think they performed incredibly well.
Yeah.
I do believe they are still an army that requires an insane amount of skill with the pilot. And like I was shit scared every single game of this tournament. I was legitimately playing on the verge where a single mistake could have mean me losing 20-0, which was absolutely not where I wanted to be for 7 game straight at WTC. But they still performed incredibly well. However, important talk now develops, I think, in the T-Sense community. Are they dead because of the recent changes to indirect and no line of sight shooting? Because I've seen multiple good people say they are still absolutely fine. I'm not sure.
I think something more along the lines of what Brian took or what USA, Canada.
Yeah, the Magical Chaos Knights, right?
Yeah. That probably will become more of the norm if you were going to continue with Thousand Suns. I think you would definitely move away from the more flamers characters, but they're too good kind of not.
They are so fucking good though.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. The list I still think was the best list of the tournament and actually performed the best as a hitter was David's list, right? David Gale's list.
Sure.
I still really loved it. I think it was the best T-Sons list at the tournament. It was 3 MVPs, still had Infernal Masters, still had Exalted. It was fucking amazing. Fit all you want, you basically lose the lone up guy, which I did use in some of the games, but overall I think I would easily switch it to MVP. So that list was slapped, but I am now legitimately scared that if you face a pressure list, a very good pressure list, without it's not even that you used the indirect shooting too much with T-Sons. You actually barely do when you play those matchups, but the threat of the matchup of the indirect is huge. It changes the whole dynamic.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
I think legitimately the existence of that stratagem and you having ways to activate it through exalted sorcerers is massive, and without it, it would have been a fucking disaster in some of the matchup I played. Specifically, like I completely destroyed the Canadian custodies because the stratagem existed, right?
100%. Yeah, I think it will now make you somewhat slightly more in that difficult phase of board choice becomes even more important for Thousand Suns to allow you to maybe put your shooting down better. But then if you start getting into more of a shooting game, rubrics aren't going to stand up to that. So yeah, if you play something with a lot of pressure that can hide, it becomes Magnus now that only hits on 4s, isn't clearing whole important squads.
Really?
So yeah, I think the list. I think Thousand Suns aren't dead. I think they change. They still have a lot of great things going for them, but are they I would say they were the best army at the WTC this year. They would probably become more of a middle of the pack army.
I was not that super. I think I definitely might have undervalued the T-Sons because I was very not comfortable into a lot of matchups because
Pumba had
that army can
worst
just fucking
matrix
crumble.
of our team.
I didn't. I really didn't in most of the time. But some of the teams did definitely find the right counters for me. Like those fucking accursed will like.
Yeah.
I will lose sleep still because of that list. I've played that matchup like into the French ACDC list. I think once or twice. And the moment you realize how fucked you are when like they charge your screen, they move 6, they stand in a line with surge move available to them, and the game ends, you just know it ended. You have not shot their one accursed squad yet, and then you know it's fucking done. Man.
Yeah, it's tough.
So there's definitely now counters to I think custodies. I think the guard list that NAS developed and the French developed both do really well into that because you don't have enough resources to deal with everything. I think there's a lot of answers for T-Suns from that WTC, and I think people are going to use them extensively in the upcoming tournaments because T-Suns are still like the baseline good, but now you have a lot of answers to that baseline good.
Yeah, like T-Suns was one of the most popular armies with one of the more predictable builds and way of playing. So if you need counters for Thousand Suns, you can develop them. You didn't know Olivier was going to take 110. Well, you probably didn't have an idea he was going to, but like you don't necessarily build a counter in your team for 110 Marines that one person took. You just don't. You do build them for almost every team taking Sisters and almost every team taking Thousand Suns. I guess faction-wise, how did people find Sisters? I still think they are the best codex in the game. Are they? That maybe doesn't necessarily translate to teams as much, but a lot of them did quite well.
They are still amazing,
Yeah.
but I think they have definite counters. I think they benefit from a table a lot, and I think they are not such an aggressive hitter faction that everybody expected them to be.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I was doing a lot of pairings and having a lot of talks with Myton about the faction, right? As I also play Sisters. And I think the problem is kind of similar to what was before. You cannot really force yourself down the throat of your opponent to actually win the game. You do not have enough resources to do that. So it usually ends up with Sisters playing a grindy game again, which you are way better at because of how mobile you are. You can exploit all the positional mistakes and do some more damage of your own thanks to that. And I think it can be seen that Sisters shouldn't win by insane amounts. And our matrix into Sisters was very drawish. Like, we had few people who were like, I do not want to play Sisters, like Leshu and Custodes, which makes perfect sense.
Sure.
Or Scark being, I should lose to Sisters unless I choose the table, then I will draw into Sisters. And then we had a lot of people being like, okay, with Sisters, when I'm playing against Sisters, I think it will fully develop based on who's going second or what table choice I have. Like, Sisters couldn't attack their good matchups because even if they attack good matchups, if they would choose such table that they were struggling a lot to bring those 12s or higher. So I think they are good, but I think that how they will be used moving forward will be more as a blunt army or an army that can play into gunlines, because I think they still can.
Yeah.
Or an army that can be defender and just go for... If it just aligns that you can take away a faction that is a problematic in your pairings, then you will play them as defender, which, for example, we did into one of the teams, I think into Sweden, we defended with Sisters because it just aligned into our matrix that they would take something we didn't want.
Yeah. Just trying to think of any factions. I think we've gone over all the main ones we discussed.
Custodes are good, by the way. Just don't play fucking like just bring tanks. Be a human.
Yeah,
that's what I would say.
And play more chaff.
Play a lot of chaff. Like, I think Leshu's list is legitimately the most optimal Custodes list bar none. I think it was the best in the tournament.
I think the Singapore list was also decent.
Yeah, I think sure, absolutely.
It on paper looked like shit.
No, it was good.
And then I saw it play a few times, and I was like, okay, sure, I see what's happening here. I didn't understand. Chapeau bas to the guy who developed.
Yep, I will fucking mention, if you take that list, do minds that Sisters actually can try, like the Sisters of Silence can try right in Land Trader. We didn't know that. Neither did our opponent, so just be careful.
I didn't actually know that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's a very good list. Just beware about zeros. I still think, like, I legitimately think Custodes did very well. I think Lesh said multiple times that army is complete garbage still. It has a very specific role though. It cannot be pushed into. My God, if you are a pusherist, if you are when I saw that list survive the onslaught of the ACDCs, or like when I saw
We had it as a counter to Mani's Blood Angels, by the way.
legitimately, I saw Mani's
Yeah,
Blood Angels
yeah.
fall over and die to it.
Yeah,
Because if you push into that list, you will die every
And
time.
that's what happened. I think that's why Lesiu had such a good score, by the way, at the end of the
Sure.
event. Such a good score. I think he had 84 points, which is like average of 11.
Yeah, but like
But
he's still one hell of a player. Like he's a really good player. So like I think you've got a really good player piloting a list that he's practiced a lot on. Because I'd imagine it was difficult for him to give up Dark Angels. But yeah.
It really was.
No, I get it. Totally get it. But he did super, super well with like 84 points out of a. Was it a specific counter list or was it a?
It was one
grind
of the
point?
last picks. It was legitimately one of the last picks. We were like, we want the GK so that Vladi takes GK because he has played that a lot. But Lesiu also took GK and like played GK. So what do we bring? And then one of the members of the community in Poland, who is like 19 years, I think now, has been known to every time before WTC, there's like a game where he fucking 20-0 somebody with custodies. Someone from the actual fucking team.
yeah, national
It
team.
happens every day, every single year.
year.
By the way, like he comes out, he comes out, he has a list. Like he 20-0 one of the fucking Team Poland players. He comes back, he disappears for another month, and we're like, do we fucking take custodies now? What
He
the fuck
goes
are you
back to World of Warcraft.
Yeah, legitimately, but that's what
national member
happens.
and goes back to World of Warcraft.
That's legitimately what happens. He
goes back to his
pops-
real life. Yeah.
Yeah, he pops in, fucking destroys somebody with custodies, comes back to the World of
Just
Warcraft,
bounces.
and we're like, is this army good enough? What the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think legitimately because did a very important job in stopping any aggression that was thrown into us. Legitimately, if you smash into that list, you will absolutely get demolished. If you're Minus Blood Angels, if you're Space Wolves, if you're anything and just try to absolutely hand push into it, not going to happen. You will absolutely get rolled. Which
There
not
are
many
a few
armies can do
factions
that.
can push. Like Deathwing Knights. But I think
Deathwing
it
Knights, I
works
think,
for
are the
us
best one.
also. Its bad matchups actually aligned with other bad matchups we had as a team. So in those singular games Lesiu lost, he played, for example, against 15 Deathwing Knights. And that army was just a big problem in our matrix. And he was like, cool, I'll take this bullet and I'll bring like 6 points out of it. And it just aligned with the fact that his bad matchups were good for our team if he were to take them. And also he had some weirdly good matchups into a lot of melee armies, even though people thought custodies are dead because they do not have 5% -1 damage, but god fucking damn it, that Valerian squad with Feel No Pain,
It's pretty good. It slaps like a motherfucker.
Agreed.
A lot of that list is very good. I was especially like, I think Kyria's squad still is like slept on how fucking insane that squad is. It's like Arcane Vortex on drugs, by the way. I have had it kill 2 full squad of Rubric Marines in a single round of shooting. That might have been because out of 6 shots, Lesiu, when I was obviously out of line of sight, rolled me into 11 wounds and I failed most of them. It still did happen. That girl was fucking insane. I think a lot of people underestimated how it played. I think a lot of people underestimated how you can push it to it. I still remember my game with John Lennon against the Dark Angels when I look around and I see Sean just fucking hand pushing one objective elves and like, this is not going to end well for you, brother. This is not how you play into custodies. So like people underestimated it. It's
I think a little bit. Obviously, WTC's top level players, everything else, but you can still make bad calls where people go, "Oh, Custodies bad. I beat Custodies," because they've been playing against Custodies for a long time, and go, "I know how to beat Custodies," but the new book changed them, and they're not used to that list.
We did the same with Drukhari and Demons. So
really did. Really
so,
I guess another faction that was very, very popular and ultimately did quite well. We kind of touched on it earlier, but Necrons. Like, you guys took a very different type of Necron list, but it still seemed to perform pretty well.
No, he didn't.
You
I
didn't
think
feel
it
like
was our lowest score this year.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
was it?
our worst scorer.
Okay.
Yeah. The
I don't
army
think Necrons were
didn't
good.
perform.
Yeah,
I really liked his list. I really liked
I
it.
know. I think it's still good.
I think it is good, yeah.
I think it
Or was
is
it
still
just
good. I
annoying
was
and
very
boring?
impressed by it. I was also very surprised how easy it is for everybody to remove those fucking unkillable wraiths. Because I've tried for like 6 games to kill half of that squad with multiple
yeah.
factions, multiple armies, and then anything sneezed at them at the fucking WC and they just rolled up and died. And it happened multiple times, and I'm like, what the fuck? I cannot kill this squad ever.
By the way, it happened in both of those rounds. We didn't win.
Right, yeah.
That is
Yeah,
true.
because like I believe the chat in our England group, the extended England group chat, was we really, really love this Awakened Dynasty list. And then somebody said, I think it was Josie, the next comment was, for the love of God, nobody charged that Wraith unit.
Like legitimately,
But yeah.
I am not sure. I will be very happy to talk to Ghetto. We didn't have like the full debrief or anything for Team Poland. Because there might be a lot of variants. I've heard fucking nightmare stories of how Swedish Titans removed that squad by just fucking sneezing it at him with like no loss Magnus and like 2 force fields
And 9
maybe
damage
one
Doom Bolts.
and the 9 damage Doom
Right.
Balls. And I've personally put entire army of Titans into it and killed like most, but not all, so none of them.
Yeah.
And it's just fucking roll up and die because of rolls or something. I think it's even on stream, so that can happen. So I'm very much curious if like that should happen or was this variance. Overall, they were still very comfortable in the Matrix, what I will say, right?
And overall, we kind of felt Hypercrypt is still very much here, very, very
Yes.
useful for most teams.
Okay, so I have an opinion here. As we were talking about the problem of pushing higher scores, Hypercrypt does that very well.
Yeah, it can do.
It is a faction that can exploit any mistake, and is also so tricky with all the monolith shenanigans that I think it is a mistake to not bring Hypercrypt in most of the team comps now.
Yeah, agreed.
But it has one problem. It loses to T-Sons. And I don't know if it will be a problem nowadays, but this was a reason why we didn't take Hypercrypt. We took Awakened Dynasty.
Look,
Pumba?
that is true. I disagree still. I don't think Hypercrypt is that good. I think it's absolutely good, but I would never push it to the extent that it's a mistake to not have a Hypercrypt. Because I get where this Hypercrypt works. I still think it's good. Brother, if you fucking throw it into 100 Black Templar Crusaders, it's never going from it. And there's going to be multiple pleasure lists right now, I believe, that will smother it. 100%. I think it's good. I don't think it's nowhere near being at the top of the meta, I think.
No, but I think, should it make most 8s? I think so. I think the scores kind of back that up. Do they get a little bit better now the Thousand Suns can't indirect them? I don't know. Might help a little bit.
I am not
I
sure.
mean, if the Flamer guys go away as much because people start taking them as much. I don't know. I don't know what Thousand Suns are going to look like post FAQ.
Me neither. I don't even want to know. It's not Forge Fiends though. Fuck it. Is it Forge Fiends? Nah, never mind. Just move on.
No,
move
we
on.
even had a
Ignore me.
conversation. It's better to take Predators than Force.
I think so, right? I don't think Forge Fiends are good.
with Anthony.
Yeah.
Because they are too unreliable and they cannot kill chaff on a marker while
Yeah, that
Predators
makes
can.
sense.
But it is a different topic.
Yeah. Moving on to another faction that quite a lot of top teams took. Votan. Didn't blow away the scene. Kind of did
You
okay.
play
it's-
Warhammer
yeah.
and you do okay.
I think
it
it's
had-
good. Right?
Yeah, I think it had a lot of the same
my
issues
opinion on
Spark
Votan
had.
haven't changed. My opinion on Votan haven't changed.
Yeah.
Which is, very
Yeah. Very
Cool.
solid, good shooty.
It's just fucking you take army. It's legitimately what Alex said to be.
It is
Tuesday
English
afternoon or, like,
breakfast of
evening.
factions.
It is
Hey.
it is the most widespread of factions. It is like legitimately no spice of. It's no wonder England took it because motherfucker,
Yeah.
there's no spice in that. Like
Yeah.
it's just a white toast with nothing on it. It's very base. It's still fine.
Before we go any further, let's not bring up British versus a Polish food. Every Polish food is just white. It's mayonnaise and pierogi, and everything's just cabbage and white, and it's like. And sorry,
I'm so
I
glad
know this
you're
is a
coming
Warhammer
to it,
podcast. I know this is a podcast about Warhammer, but can we get past this? Polish garlic, Polish mayonnaise, and Polish everything is better than British. It's just not.
I don't think
It's
at any
nonsense.
point we said Polish food is better.
Sorry, this is maybe just.
I also don't like Polish food.
Okay, good. But you said
Unless it's
English.
Żurek.
You are
Unless it's
not
Żurek.
wrong, but it doesn't matter.
Fine.
And I will still make fun of British cuisine.
Oh yeah, ours sucks. But yours is
you
really
are
better.
not wrong.
No.
Yeah,
For most
exactly.
of
You brought up English breakfast, and I was just like, hang on, I'm going to defend my country here.
Better than the team at WTC did.
No comment. Moving swiftly on to another faction. Scrambling for another one. I thought the French Death Guard list did pretty well.
It was also like the most basic.
It's the most
first
Lego.
defend draw, which is
Yeah.
very fine, right?
Yeah.
If you want, they needed the faction for that. That's what they came up. I think it's absolutely like the
It
base.
did a job. Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't think Death Guard are in a great place right now, singles or teams. They're just kind of meh. Unfortunately,
They are
got some good things.
You probably first defend and score.
Okay, Vic.
That is something that an Indian man said now, and that means a lot. We've
That's
got
true.
fucking Vic behind us, bro.
You do good soups. I'll give you that. I'll give you,
Oh,
you do very good soups.
There we go.
Anyway.
At least at that.
Anyway,
What were we on about? GK were good.
I don't think there's
I am
much to
losing
talk
track,
about
by the
GK.
way.
yeah, GK really good. I thought Nids did really well for specific players. Some didn't do that great. Some did really, really well. Woback.
We found
Woback
Nids
on
to
a-
be super underwhelming in our preparation,
True.
and we just dropped them. We
Yep,
didn't
interesting.
find any good matchups for them, and we found they can get pushed.
Yep.
They can certain builds, but I think Eric did well for USA with them. Won most of his games. Woback did very well with them. I think he scored over 100 points. The Spanish one did pretty well, but it was very smash or be smashed.
Oh,
a little
that
bit.
was the fucking all gas no breaks list. I loved it.
Yeah.
Fucking terrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
It's super scary in pairings, but it can just it does fall over. It
Yes,
is
but
very
you have to have balls of steel to bring this and balls of steel to play that, and
very Spanish.
put a decent score into your matrix, and you're like, do I trust myself to do that? Do I trust myself to go first, or will I not?
Yeah. That is very, very true.
All right, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Questions?
Yes, please.
Yes.
I'm gonna pop them up on the screen and prepare all the ones we have in the chat in the meantime. So you guys talk
awesome.
and I'm gonna do this.
Awesome. So, Bozzy Gaming, thank you for the $5. Howdy, I'm trying to build a lore/fluff-based competitive list. My brain freezed for a bit right there. Think Black Templars, Raven Guard, or Mono Demons. You pick Black Templars. You either go Horde Crusaders, because I think that's actually very fluffy if you think about it.
Yeah.
Can you say that? Like, legitimately, I think like you bring in 100 just dudes with characters is very Black Templars. So you can just play the best list that came out of WTC if you want to do that, or you just drive Swordbread and Rhinos in Impulsors still. I think I cannot say that I can see a Raven Guard or Mononegro Demons list at all existing in a competitive sense.
I
I
would
think-
be qualified if I knew lore.
Yes, we are not good at that though.
Yeah, so parade
Yeah.
painted, I assume he means armies on parade, so US event style. Yeah, you're going for presumably best in what do they call it?
Best overall.
Yeah, best overall. That's the one. Mono Nurgle, you're gonna find it tough. There's some good Nurgle things, but demons are kind of based on a base of Khorne with Blood Thrones because they just have the most busted ability in the game.
Yep.
Then you kind of put a smattering of other gods in there. Raven Guard, I guess you're kind of going down the Vanguard style list, which has kind of fallen out of competitive favor as of recently.
Not
so
fun at all.
yeah, like Pumba said, Black Templars, Horde, just a bunch of boys on a nice crusade. It's pretty
Actually, what I will say about the Black Templars list, just as a side note to this question, but also overall, don't get cute with it.
No.
Oliver has brought a very similar thing to Pyra, but he was running 60 of them with some extra
Yes.
stuff, and like
Exactly.
I think a gladiator might have been there or something. That was okay, but it was nowhere near the level of 100 of those fuckers.
Yeah.
I think the difference is huge if you bring that exact like all gas no brakes list. So,
But
Good
going
then
back
as
to
well.
the actual question, if he's doing parade painted, for best painted army, Nurgle's probably the better because you're going to have to really make 110 dudes stand out. Which is
that's gonna be a
tough.
pain in the fucking ass.
And
And-
4 great unclean ones.
yeah,
That's
that's as an actual
It also
best
gives you-
painted. Yeah,
It also gives you space for conversions and whatnot, or
Yeah.
using some
Nurgle's
alternative-
great for that. Yeah.
True.
Yep.
Agreed.
Moving forward, I don't know what to say about Frog's OP, and I have no clue at what point of conversation.
I think that might have been about Mythology for 6 Beasts. I am not sure though.
Okay.
That's a guess though.
But thank you, Clown Mode, for $5.
Frogs are great.
And this. Then, Red Room says, watched Leshu play Custodies on stream and he played them so well into Canada's Eldar. Was the list made to play well into Eldar, or is there more to it? Pumba, you want to answer that?
Not specifically. They just happen to be okay into Eldar, or they happen to be very good if people want to fuck around and find out. I think on that specific table, Leshu also played that matchup at least once, I think twice, into that exact Sean's list on very bad tables. And I think it usually draws, maybe sometimes wins, cards, stuff like this.
And the game into Canada's Eldar ended 14-6 because of some like unlucky rolls on the Eldar side at the end,
Exactly.
which meant that it was an 11-9.
Yeah.
So
like it usually draws or like loses slightly to Eldar, I think, on their table. However, if you would like to push into it, as Sean did, like on the flank, just fucking throwing things and being like, well, you cannot charge me, then you don't do damage against the 2 tanks and the Kyria squad, they can just disappear. Like the Eldar are just made of paper, and those like the Kyria squad and the tanks are enough to shoot it off the table.
And by the way, in the current meta full of high wires, that Rhino with 3 up Feel No Pain is just a pain in the ass for
Not
Eldar.
fucking Rhino. You cannot doombolt the thing. You cannot like grenade it. You cannot dev wound it. You cannot haywire it. It's so bullshit, bro. The 3 up Feel No Pain Rhino is just insane. Also, the Leshu's list especially works very nicely into Eldar because he has multiple Witch Seeker squads with Flamers. Those are a bitch to remove. They can overwatch Eldar really well, so there's definitely some play there. Basically, if you need to play this matchup extremely carefully as Eldar and quite passively as most armies into that Custodes build. That was its goal. It's going to blunt, and if you fuck around, then you find out. Sean kind of found out. Is what
I would imagine most Eldar players from previous experience with Custodes think they would smash Custodes or beat them most times. Whereas, like you say, if you then try and push for that score, and that's not maybe the case anymore.
Yep. Moving on.
Yep.
Who had the best team cheer? We did, but it's not PG, so I'm not gonna say it.
And it is such a wordplay that you cannot even translate
That's
it.
what it's not translatable. It's also not
Anthony
meaningful.
asked me about it. And I was like,
Look,
this
it's complicated.
timetable,
It's a thing. It's a thing.
timetable in English doesn't make sense. In that
Yeah,
sense.
it's just it's yeah.
But
going
to
to
be
happen.
fair, it is nice when it comes to wordplay, but it is very bad how it rolls off the tongue because you cannot make it as loud as say USA. You could shout, right? So there is a problem.
The Aussies had their one, of course. Aussie did work, and I did hear it through the entire hall. The classic USA, but I think the classic USA works because there's like fucking 50 of them.
Yeah.
Motherfuckers.
Did Germany have a good one?
I didn't hear
Sometimes
them.
they've had one in the past.
I didn't hear them at the top tables much.
That's what I mean. It usually didn't reach the front of rows, you know.
Sorry.
When you list your factions, make it into your own 8 now post WTC. So we've talked about Black Templars. I think ACDC spam, like the French list, is fucking bueno. We talked about the Hypercrypt. Anything else?
Okay, let me add one more thing. I think we can give here another point of view. I don't think we had, for example, bad team comp.
No,
I think our team comp was able to win the event as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think it slapped.
It was good enough.
We had any misses.
I looked into every team and analyzed pairings. Every team I could win the pairings against.
Mhm.
It is
I
just
think we
lacked
didn't.
information.
Yeah, I don't think we had a bad team comp. I think no one army was useless. I think everybody has its role. I think everybody was kind of useful. I think we had proper hitters. I think we had wolves figured out immensely good. So I wouldn't necessarily switch out any other armies.
As a person doing
about
pairings, I felt every pairing I could approach and do at least 80-80.
Yep.
Into every team, even if they had 100 Black Templars.
Sure.
So
I think
you could arguably say that any of the top 5 teams, their team comp was who finished in the top 5. I mean, their team comp could have won that event. And to be honest, I know you guys weren't in the position to win, but obviously were in the position to podium in the last game. I guess everyone else in the top, like USA, could have won the event had certain things gone certain ways. Spain could have won. Sweden could have won.
Sweden.
Yeah.
100%.
So like any of them were super close to it. So I think this whole, I heard certain people say,
but I know one list underperformed and team mentioning that they wouldn't bring it, and that's Sean Seldar. I know the.
I don't think Tony
I know
had a
that's
weekend either.
Yeah, exactly. So I know that it was a problem for them, and I think this might be. But this is like the only army I've heard. I've heard Swedes complaining about how hard it was to pair their Drukhari. But those are like singular factions that you will always have one faction that will be rough to do pairings because you came to the event with certain assumptions, and hindsight is 2020, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Agreed.
I think we made good decisions. We just failed on the
execution
boards.
I think execution. Despite falling short, how do we feel about Sweden's baller lineup? Fucking baller. Certified classic. Got everybody fucking scared. Drew the champions. Fucked us. So, what the fuck?
Lost to Spain.
Lost to Spain, as you do. Man.
Had they drawn, would have they come second?
Yes.
I think so.
Or they either draw and go second.
I think if they draw, they end up third because Spain would get second.
Spain had more
exactly.
Okay, yeah.
So I think we drop to the 4th place. It was between us two.
Sure, yeah.
Absolutely fucking baller lineup. So much respect. Holy shit! Like it looked so fucking bad. It was so motherfucking good. I have nothing to add. Demons like just chopped off heads. Those fucking Dark Eldar slapped the shit out of everybody. I think Jonathan wasn't actually very fond of how they were to pair. But man, did they work against us? For example, they actually,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think that our list like kind of won them that round.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've got nothing to add. And the two
They
knights, of
were
course.
the only team that stopped Crooker
Yeah.
from scoring us high.
It was like 14-6, wasn't it? So, yeah.
Yep.
He lost 14-6.
Yeah.
So
Or 7-13, whatever. He lost basically, which didn't happen much this event.
No.
no. We
what are the
kind
things
of
that
talked about it
Mhm.
throughout the whole episode.
Yeah, that is true. Overperformed Custodes, I think, actually.
Yeah.
I think they would have
Exactly.
done worse. Underperformed, I think
Necrons
maybe
and Admag.
Necrons.
Necrons and
Admec,
Admag.
sure, Admec, yes. Exactly what you thought most of the lineup.
Yes, exactly.
It's funny to say, but we really believed in the Wolves, and they did smash everybody's faces in. So we kind of, but we did kind of expect that to happen. So
Also, let's say it again. They were really protected in pairings. I
Yeah,
did
they
the
were.
pairings having
They
in
were
mind they
insane.
can get the 20s.
Yep.
So they got 3 times
And-
GK and got 20, 28, 18, right?
Yeah.
Did they negatively impact other players' make games to
No.
do so?
I mean, I was kind of
no,
buzzed,
too
I
bad,
think, a little bit, but
No, it was Pumba and Myson. Pumba
Yeah.
and Myson drawish matchups, so they can get 20.
yeah, exactly. We
That's
just
how-
basically
that's how it
draw us or like don't position us instead position wolves, and it worked every
Sure.
time like a charm.
Yeah.
What I will say it was about that wolves list. We were cooking it for legitimately 5 months. So every time we were discussing any wolves list on this show, I was trying so hard not to fucking scream out loud that is the most broken shit that ever existed in Warhammer.
That army is so dumb.
It is
is so
legitimately
dumb.
that it is just it is the dumbest piece of shit. I hate it with a passion, by the way. I've played it Crooker so many times, especially with T-Sons. It slaps so bad. Nightmares, legitimate nightmares. What was the spiciest thing you guys saw across the event? Singles and teams? Black Templars list that Oliver brought. ACDC, loved it. Demons. I think Swedish demons especially.
Spanish demons had higher score, I think. Raven had higher score, I think.
Possibly. I still like the Swedish better, actually. As a list.
I also like them better because they do not have useless greater demons, but yeah.
What else? Actually, Canada's Jukari, which is Scari's list through and through, I think. So the double Void Raven Bomber is still very good. I think that list still slaps. Also, one of the lists that were like, so those immortal wraiths, if I shoot them with 2 planes, though, right? They should die, and they fucking just disappeared off the table. What the fuck? I think that's the top picks.
Yeah.
David's T-Sons, but I don't know if they will still work, honestly.
What lists are you guys most excited to take from here and run at your next singles event? And I think this is a question to Nathan because me and Pumba don't play singles for shit.
Yeah. So this weekend, in fact, I am at Leeds GT, which is a 250-man event, and I am taking Crusher Stampede. I've slightly tweaked America's Crusher list to suit our terrain a little bit better and some matchups. And then I've got an event at the end of the month where I'm going to take Woback's Nid list, which is just a super all-round, really balanced Vanguard list. Like it does combat, shoot, move, score, everything really, really well with some nice tweaks in there for the actual meta at the moment. Then whatever I'm taking to Pyra, which we'll discuss that whenever.
Let's go.
Yeah, I finally get to play with my boys.
Why not? Why did only Sweden figure out to stat check on a less lethal edition? I don't think their strength was actually in the stat check. I think their strength was in Demons and Jukari. I think probably if they went with something else than Knights and Chaos Knights, they would have ended up better. But it worked for them, and
Sure,
that's okay.
Yep. On the perfection specialist, I agree. I don't think their team compo, especially a stat check, it did work nicely together as like higher toughness skills. Sure, but the knights still died. most of the time, and exploded in my face usually. We've seen Australia and
Yeah.
France smash the singles and then go on to win the teams. Have team as undervalued the practice for War Masters, or is still too much for K? No, I think the practice with War Masters is War Master is still huge. Boy, do you have to have the stamina to fucking do this.
Oh yeah.
Like, legitimately, I think I would have performed twice as bad, like not half as good as I've done.
Twice as bad. You can
Like-
see the Polish guy in you.
The actual Polish perspective, right?
Yeah, negative.
I think
from
I
the
would have
get-go.
scored half of my points if I played Sunday after playing War Masters. And I actually will say that I believe Sweden drew France because Oliver was too tired to
Yep.
into. I think he specifically said that he made so many mistakes during his game into knights that he drew, and that could have given France the win.
Because he played what? 14
That was like 13
games in 6 days?
Something
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
incredibly high
607.
level, sweaty as fuck games in a very
With 100 models rolling thousands of dice every
Yeah.
round.
Yeah.
So
And
I
think
legitimately
this-
think
That is
War
nuts.
Masters.
That
If
is-
you need practice on War Masters, you are fine. It's fine. It's very cool to like,
but
especially
please,
get into the mode of
goddamn,
playing.
drop the last 3 rounds.
Yeah, but
Don't
like
play-
in
don't
terms
play
of
the
practice, also it's nice. You brought up Australia. Australia never played their teams list in War Master.
No.
I think it's more the case of if you happen to play Wars Masters and you're extremely well prepared and you're fucking very good at the game and you have a baller list, you can also play like win War Master by accident. I think I'm more on that train.
And I think for quite a lot of teams to come over and get to play, I guess, let's call it a European meta or a European way of playing, it is different than people think it is. We all have the same books, we all have the same rule book, but we all play the game somehow differently.
That
When
is
you
true.
come over from USA or Australia, I think having those extra reps into how people play things is important.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it does
No.
serve you well.
I think a specific question for Nathan now. Thoughts on Ines's Tyrannid list and could it work for singles?
Yeah, I think it could. Scotland did well this year. I think very much had they, say, beaten Germany, they would have finished maybe higher than England, potentially. But wasn't to be, but they did super, super well. I think Innes's list is very good. It's NIDs are kind of there's a lot of factions you can, like detachments you can take with them, and they're all good. Whether they are pushing for 5-0s to maybe get into brackets, I'm not quite sure. NIDs are a very, very solid 4-1 list right now, depending on how your pairings go in the event. Like if you can avoid certain matchups. It's an interesting that it's Synaptic Nexus rather than maybe Vanguard or I guess the only one version you would take is Vanguard. But no, NIDs, you can play a lot of different versions of NIDs and do well at singles. So 100% you can take Innis's list of singles and do well. It relies on doing quite a lot of mortals over a lot of turns.
How
Which
big
is
of an impact?
Yeah.
Yeah, Pumba?
How big an impact did Secret Missions have at the WTC? Big. As we've discussed during the show, you need to account them that they exist in the Matrix itself. There are armies that are very good at them. There are armies that are shit at them. There are armies that suffer from them existing. There are armies that benefit them. It's just a part
There are
of the
armies
game.
that are
Deal
just
with it.
designed around it.
Exactly. Deal with it. It's a thing. It's not a meme. It happened multiple times during the event. I've heard it happen to a lot of people. The secret missions are here to stay. They won't affect every single game. They will happen. You will have to figure out what if your opponent can do them and then protect yourself from them, or always have in mind that you can play a maybe a more defensive game and still score them.
or the game that Maison had into Jeremy, that he realized that he cannot kill any unit this turn, so Jeremy doesn't get to choose a secret mission.
Yep.
Purge.
Yeah.
First of all, also happened.
Sometimes it is almost better to tank your early primary if you
Yep.
think you can catch it up. Yeah.
Yeah. Any thought on secondary and how often you should cycle them? I seen throughout the event as a coach walking around the table that I think nearly every player cycled at least 2 times per game.
At least 2 times. I have personally cycled turn 1 in 4 of my games. I usually still draw a fucking donut. So that brings bad memories. But I think it is very matchup and army dependent. How do you need to spend your CPs in certain matchups? So like I don't think there's a blanket statement. What I will say with T-Sons and a lot of more passive armies that will develop a longer game, I would be inclined, and especially that have some sort of CP generation. T-Sons have like half of a CP generation. They can manage their stratagems with lower costs. I think you are fine cycling from the first battle round, and I mean it. I think the
This
cards
is
are
also
huge.
something that was a very good thing for Leshu
Mhm.
with his custodies, because custodies just do not nearly have any strats, at least in the shield host. So it came up that he would basically cycle throughout the whole game, and this kind of made sure that even when he's playing more of an elite army with less resources, even though he was taking way more chaff, he could still score very decently on secondaries. And I saw him score even 40s sometimes with custodies, right? So
Fair. Absolutely fair.
yeah, I think this is like a weird way to balance if you have bad set of stratagems in a faction.
Mhm.
Yeah, how much did the secondary scoring impact your games? I think we've talked quite a bit about it.
Massively.
Yeah.
Scoring
I
like
think Pumba
so-
was approaching me so often saying I got pariah.
I like legitimately every time I coached, especially at like the first battle round, who went first, the first check of the game, and I'm like, so I went first and I drew a donut with a redraw. You can mark me as being down from my estimation. Let's go. Happened so many
So-
fucking times.
Do you think with the game now, especially in obviously not every event uses the 20-0 sliding scale system, but is it at a point now where it's nice that games aren't easy to 20-0 like we've had in the past, where say 2019, a difference of 20 points got you a 20-0. But are we too far the other way now where it's too drawy?
I don't think so.
No?
I legitimately don't think so, and I don't think the WTC system, like the WTC results, support that.
Sure.
I think the results were completely fine. There were some draws, but not a lot of them. There were tight wins, tight draws, something like that. I think that's fine.
So
And
it's
I
the
don't think
meta
that's
causing the draws rather than like
I think so. I think so.
game
I think it's legitimately the balance of the game, and like the fact that like this game, I had that a lot in my estimations against some of the armies where you cannot literally push with T-Sons because you might get fucked. So the entire game becomes sitting on your ass, like slightly positioning, like trying to get some primary on something, on someone, and it's mostly being so if I go second and I draw well, I win this 13, maybe 12. And if I go first and draw a little bit worse, I probably go 6, 7, 8, right? A lot of matchups I feel like are this. Maybe that's very a T-Son's way of looking at things. Because there are unless you are very well positioned in pairings, there are going to be multiple matchups where you cannot push, you cannot shove it, so you are kind of in this very weird pariah limbo.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel like Fixed was remotely viable? No.
Sean did once.
Do I want to ask?
I think he played Oliver, right, on stream, and I think he took Call the Horde Assassinate against the Horde of Black Templars.
If you kill it, you max your points.
That is true. Unfortunately, the elves have absolutely zero capacity to do so. I don't think he scored a lot of points from that secondary. I think 0 is the answer. I think
I
fixed
think
are
he might have
absolutely-
gotten like 4 or 8.
maybe. Sure, of course. I
Assassinate
don't think
you can do
I
with
legitimately
being
don't
hard.
think that it mattered a bunch what he picked.
Yeah, I think it's a 0 anyway. It's just the question is how you get that 0.
I
So-
think that might have been the case.
Anyway, I think fixed is not viable.
No, I don't think it is.
It's so situated. It's only really if your opponent gives away assassinate, and you can do say cleanse or maybe
Geto had
Engage.
36 points from assassination, and not even once opponent took fixed against him.
no,
Yeah.
because the
Which,
second
by the
one's
way,
not.
might have been actual playing to him. But I don't know how it would have developed. So,
Yeah.
Fair.
But I don't miss
About
that.
about sisters, I think we touched quite a bit on them earlier in the show, so I won't
Yep.
be talking more about them.
Just
Listen
briefly,
to Sister Act. I think Mitch will just
this-
grab.
do listen to Sister Act actually if you want to
Yeah.
learn all about sisters in the WTC because there's going to be a lot of episodes. I think.
Like
Yeah,
I do wish
so.
I do wish the other detachments had done better. It does seem a bit bringers of flame.
Riley performed really well. Riley with
maybe I
Hallowed
missed that.
Martyrs had.
Hall Matters, I think, had a really good placing.
I think he was like
Okay, I missed that.
10 to 12s every round. It's just Grisha who had very good scores in his pod, but then got like total of 14 points out of his pod. I think this is a problem
yeah.
that Penitent Host needs to be adjusted because that army
Yeah.
just doesn't work.
Yeah, legitimately. He had a 20 in pod, 18 in pod, 16 in pod, and then the 7, 1, 8, and 11. Not a terrible
Yeah,
score,
so-
to be honest, but some disappointing
But
results for
it's
sure.
it's not.
No.
Indeed.
Who is the best newcomer team to WTC? It is Singapore, Thailand, no questions asked.
No, not even close. Yeah.
Not even
I
close. We are very after round 1. We even had a talk. This is like seed 2 team.
Yeah, legitimately. My ass still fucking hurts from being absolutely demolished by Ash. God bless her
Sweating
soul.
up.
Because God bless her soul and fuck my Magnus, I guess, because that motherfucker just cannot pass a save and then not fail a battle shock into
To be
dealing
fair,
0 damage.
Day 2, Pumba, after the game against Ash, did a pep talk to Magnus. Like, we have a video of him just talking to his model, how he should
Fucking
get
worked.
better. And it worked.
Apparently, how you play T-Sons, it doesn't really work very well if somebody just hand pushes into you as Ash did. But apparently how you play T-Sons is you never take a save on Magnus. So you cannot fail it. Because that's basically what happened for the rest of my tournament. But when I had to, I showed that fail all of them, and then I battle shocked, and I did then do 0 damage, and it hurt. So yes, Singapore Thailand definitely the best newcomer, like by far.
And
I've
we
lived
got
in
a few
Thailand.
more.
15th fucking place of 40 coming as a first timer is insane.
Yeah. I'm very
Yeah.
impressed. I'm looking forward to what you guys will achieve moving forward. Like,
Agreed.
genuinely. This was your first year?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if you will be like kicking out Netherlands from Seed 1 moving forward.
The Netherlands hate always on time.
Yeah. Anyway, we've got a few more super chats. Save me
times
from
free
myself. Your unit with 4-up Final Pain has been hit with 5 times 3 damage successful wounds. How and in what order do you roll? You just roll it one by one until the model is done.
Depending on how many wounds do you have on your models, you roll as many at the time that would kill a model, so they don't spill over.
Yeah.
Right? So you have 3 wounds.
If you have raves,
if you have
or
raves or
raves,
3-up, just roll them one by one, probably, right? You're fine. You have a Custodies with 4-up Final Pain. He has 3 wounds, so you roll 3 dice, because the entire thing, if you have all 3, can kill him. Otherwise, you can do more. I think it's kind of self-explanatory in a way.
Yeah.
Do you think your sister was better than the other?
No.
No, I think they are viable. I think it's
I
very
think all
preference.
sister lists make sense, and it is up to the pilot what they find useful.
I think it's very preference.
Yeah.
Extreme.
Although in our matrix, only one sister list that we faced, we had completely different matrix, and I want to shout out Spain in that one. The Spanish
Actually,
list
yes,
with
the
triple
fucking
exhaust,
Exorcist.
changed some of our matchups that, for example, our 6 GK and DK list that was usually green into sisters, so comfortable wins like 12 to 14. Into that one had an orange because he thought that he cannot play his usual game plan into that list.
Sure.
So I think there was one list that was bringers that worked differently, and I don't know if it is because people didn't have enough reps into it or they were scared of triple exorcist and its entire fire, but that was the worst list for our matrix when it came to estimations.
But I ain't playing that shit with fucking T-cells. I'm gonna table my rubrics, my proof fucking things. That's insane. I don't want to do that. I want to play a passive fucking game. I don't want no indirects just killing my stuff. Are you crazy? Come on.
You want to indirect people, not get indirect.
Exactly. That's what I do. Not have it done to me. Come on. Okay, let's
Yeah.
get to probably the last question because fuck me as always.
Okay, do you
have
think this
always
year the
been-
competition was much stronger in general, considering where Germany, USA, and England ended up? And why do you think is that? Okay, so I will start being more egocentric. I think people are starting to learn what we've been preaching to some extent and talking with others. I will toot my own horn, but I know that USA adopted some of my system. I know France was moving towards more of the Polish system. And I think this is something that some of the teams were also like talking about. At least they mentioned to me.
Typhus, you fucking ruined it.
Or like the Spain, like I had a longer talk with the Spanish captain. They mentioned that they were also trying to get inspired by this system and how we try to build up the community and the team. So yeah, I will toot on my horn, but I think the competition is getting stronger. Everyone is taking this more seriously. Previous years, or like 22, we were one of the only teams who took it super seriously, I would wager. Some of the teams, they were like, yeah, it is WTC, we'll play some games, it will be fine, right? Then 23, more teams played more games. And now when we were talking to some teams, people were preparing like crazy, like they never did. And I think that's why we had so many potential draws and closer wins or closer losses, because the level is just getting closer and closer. And with the game being more and more stable, or maybe not stable, but like balanced, this will just be something that will happen. You will have more faction specialists, more people who are just better at their faction than any other player in a given country will be. Like 22, it was Eric Laturas, right? Last year, I think it was our Deafening Knights that were a faction that caught everyone by surprise, except Venus. And this year, there were plenty of those factions. Like in the podium, we were just talking throughout the whole episode about those factions, those lists that we didn't account for, or even if we accounted for, our assumptions were wrong. So I think this, every year, it will get harder and harder. And this is something that at the same time, I'm happy and scared of, because I know that for me this year was rough time-wise. And I don't know if it is sustainable. And this, I think we are getting to that level that it requires so much prep and so much sacrifice from the players and teams that it just might not be a thing that a team does every year. Like we had Aussies that went for 2 years very hard, and they decided to like swap most of the team. Obviously, they have more problems like financial issues, how of a grueling flight and a process for them it is. But I wouldn't be surprised if we ended up with few teams that also tried and cycled their team, because in Poland, it is, for example, me, Pumba, and Maison, we are so burnt out that we cannot imagine doing this again next year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was going to lead me on to my final question, which was, with how much prep and everything is, to be dedicated to try and podium or win it, is the WTC still fun?
No.
From a socializing aspect, maybe. Fine, get that.
Is
Gaming.
the
Is it fun?
event, the games that you play at WTC Like, so there's some parts. The event is amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
It is legitimately the best Warhammer experience. The socializing is the best you can get. The amount of people,
June, July fucking
the-
suck.
the the games that I've played at WTC, my game is against John, for example, would be the best, is probably the best game of 40k I have played in 4 years. It's cutthroat, it's extremely fucking well played, it's like, it's fun, it's how the Warhammer is supposed to be played at all times. It's just a joyous experience. It is extremely stressful, but still fucking joyous. The prep literally fucking made me lose 4 kilograms in a week.
Yeah. I had problems with stress before.
Like,
the event.
legitimately. I think
Yeah.
it is so extremely tiring and demanding from people who do not do this as a job that I cannot imagine bringing myself to doing this again next year.
Yeah.
And I fucking love this shit.
Exactly. There's like we had talks with Pumba that basically this is so demanding that our mental just went so bad in past 2 months.
Yeah,
Like
legitimately.
it was just too much.
Yeah.
It was too much pressure, and with all the other responsibilities we have, we just don't know if it's doable. And it is sad to some extent. That's why I was also mentioning that it is sad, because previous years it required a little bit less. But we are also talking from like a happy position to some extent, because we still ended up in podium, right? So you could say that our work was worthwhile. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of the teams that ended off the podium worked more than we did. Like,
Yeah,
say,
absolutely. Like
Sweden, like
France,
England,
bro.
like... Yeah,
So
but
many.
like off the podium, like
Yeah.
Sweden, England, US, like I wouldn't be surprised if they put more work than we did, but because of some random events throughout the event, they didn't end up with having a good score. And like, we will be tired, but we still come off that event being quite, like, maybe not happy, but satisfied that we got the minimum plan.
The bare minimum
But
for Poland.
bare minimum being top 3. But the other teams, like, I'm not surprised how devastated some of them were. Like, because you are putting so much time, so much preparation, you're sacrificing so much of your personal life, or like your love life to some extent as well. Like, this is insane. And I don't think... And I think it is quite bad. And I don't know if there will be a solution to this, rather than us looking at whoever performs well next year's, and I will be thinking how much they sacrificed.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
that's also why I was so emotional last year, because I realized that for me it was years to win again, even though I wasn't on the team.
You are though.
And-
you were though.
Yeah, but I wasn't involved as much. But what I'm trying to say is that it is so much work that I'm not surprised that every year, with how cutthroat it is, like, say we had 6 or 7 contenders this year. What, you didn't win this year, you might as well, if you put in the same amount of work and you get unlucky for 6 years, you might win in 7 years. Because you cannot, not everyone can win. And it is a
look how long
grueling
it's taken.
perspective.
Look how long it's taken France to get their first gold.
Yeah.
And they've been trying to be top of the meta since probably the WTC came about 2007.
Yeah, Poland,
Yeah.
before our last win, it was 9 years of work.
Yeah.
And it will be rough every year, because we will see few of the teams being happy in Bar Popular or whatever the next location might be that you have all the teams socializing at. But you will also have those teams that we might be trolling Nas a little bit because he's a shithead online and he deserves to get some back.
And
But
in
at the s-
person, let's not fucking come on.
But I think, in all seriousness, I fully understand everyone that was unhappy and like feeling down after the event. Like, because it feels like a year of your work meant nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Even
that.
I have to admit that not defending the title hurts, right? And I'm
Yeah.
on I'm on the fucking podium. We fucking made it onto the podium, which no other team can say that they podium 3 years in a row, for example.
Yeah.
Still fucking hurts to lose the title, right? Because you know how much you sacrificed last year to defend it and how much work you did this year to do it again, and you are chasing that dream. So the dream is kind of lost. I think it's getting, as Typhus says, it is getting insane for the amount of work that we are putting into this fucking dream, at least for me. And I am curious how it's gonna look in the upcoming years.
Yeah. Like, I'd be interested to talk. You obviously guys talk to probably some of the French players. Was this year just a grueling battle of just trying to,
Yeah.
Right.
it's
And
just tough.
Jonathan is saying that, like, you guys ended up 4th for a second year, right? But it is 4th. It is just one game that would have went differently, and you would get that medal. And this is also like insane because when we talk about it, we will remember that this year what the top 3 was. But people tend to forget like how close the 4th to 6th, for example, position was. Like because nearly every single one of those teams could have ended on a podium.
Yeah.
And it is just hard. And I'm curious how we will see. I haven't spoken that much to the French team, but I think there might be something that we'll need to develop in terms of like preparation. And like I had a serious talk with John Lennon, 3 a.m. in Bar Popular. So serious. You can put a small asterisk above that.
Yeah.
Like, what if we at this point, to make sure our prep is better, we just prepped as the duo Poland and USA
That sounds insane, by the way.
for a year, right? But that might be like a move forward, because with how much this work it requires, you see it in other sports or like esports, like you see it in Magic. People are practicing in groups.
Yeah.
When they are playing solo game. Maybe we should translate something similar to a team game. And we were kind of already doing that with Pyra, but it is not the same level that I know, for example, the US team also did with Sweden. They had like a shared Discord so they can play games into each other. And maybe this is the way moving forward. Maybe you need to outsource more and like come to a conclusion that maybe Poland and US cooperates for next year. Let's just say it. And we try to win all the other games, and whoever wins between us both, we are happy with it because we put the work together.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think that would take a lot of the mental stress and depression off of it. Mental health aspect of it would be a lot better if the bigger your community, the bigger, less weight is put on individual shoulders. So yeah, I think going forward, mental health will be a big part of how well a team does.
Agreed. It's getting insane. But hey, France fucking did it. And each year somebody will do it. Man, it's been a fucking year, by the way.
okay.
Yeah.
I just
And on
read
that
the message that Julia was 12 minutes in front of the flood, and I haven't heard her trying to open the door. So it was nice talking.
So
see you.
if anybody doesn't know, Typhus is getting married this fucking weekend. So that's cancelled now.
Yeah.
See you.
All right.